What's going on, FA Nation? Welcome to the Fantasy Lab DFS NBA live stream. John Pemba here, James Grande over there, Matt Sal's behind the camera. Here to break down Wednesday's 10 What's going on, FA Nation? Welcome DFS NBA maiden slate. James, crazy high game totals. We're really waiting on maybe one big injury news here. It's Chris Paul. If he's ruled out, craziness happens with James Harden and Anthony Davis. Where are we going? But before we jump into all that, why don't you give us a look at of the other injuries and game totals?
I mean, I'd consider Aaron Gordon some pretty big news as well. They've listed him closer to doubtful, so that's good. That opens up some value. Since the podcast, DeMarre Carroll's in, George Hill out, Dennis Smith Jr. in, as well as Luka Doncic. They're both going to play. But like you said, Jeremy Lin was also just ruled out. It's Chris Paul and it's Aaron Gordon. Those two are really going to basically move the needle. No other news is really going to move the needle. For totals, we still have Washington, New Orleans at a slate high 241.5. 6.5 point spread is really nice considering that we have about five games with current 10 or more spreads. That's New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Charlotte, Cleveland, OKC, Phoenix, Clippers, and Chicago, Milwaukee, and then Orlando, Portland's now up to 9.
Wow!
Because they assume Aaron Gordon doesn't play. So,
right.
Those are some pretty big spreads, and it's really why my focus tonight is on Washington, New Orleans. Is going to be on Dallas, Houston if more from the Houston side if Chris Paul doesn't play. So I mean. Utah Brooklyn isn't even bad, 215.5. That's only a 3.5 point spread. But every other game is really scary, especially for cash games, because I know right off the bat Larry Nance is the highest projected owned player, and Cleveland is 12.5 point underdogs on the road. So it's scary. It's definitely scary, but we still have to, 10 game slate. We're not just going to avoid cash. So
I agree with you there, especially not a 10 game slate. Before we get to position by position breakdown, hit up our sponsor, RT Sports. Do you want to play NBA DFS where you can talk to others while you play? RTSports.com has daily NFL and NBA contests with a chat feature that allows you to know who you're playing against and feel the sweat together. Our tools are 100% supportive of RT daily scoring and salaries with our lineup generator, making it easy for you to create winning lineups tonight. Go to rtsports.com/alarm and click the daily button to get started. That's rtsports.com/alarm. And James and I play a lot of RT Sports. I have a lot of best ball lineups over there. But yeah, their daily game is pretty on point as well. So definitely go check them out. James, with that said, let's hit it up. Start off with the point guard position. As we said before, Russell Westbrook against his Cleveland Cavaliers team. Big blowout potential here. But again, when he's on the slate, he's got to be in consideration. And I don't think he's going to be very highly owned because, like we said, a lot of people probably going to Davis, a lot of people probably going to Harden. But Westbrook could easily outscore them both.
I mean, yeah. The one thing I will say about Westbrook is that we haven't necessarily seen it yet. I don't know if that has to do with maybe a lingering injury. Maybe he just doesn't he doesn't feel he needs to because he has more help than he's had in years past, with a healthy Paul George, with healthy Steve Adams. Jeremy Grant has even come to his own. So I don't doubt it. And he has a great matchup. Colin Sexton, 118 defensive rating is obviously horrible. But I would just stick to tournaments. I find it hard to either fade Davis or fade Harden, especially if Chris Paul is out in cash games. So I'm sticking to tournaments for Westbrook. But 10.9K is a really nice, salary savings off of Davis and Harden because they're both over 11K on DraftKings. So I like them more for tournaments, though.
If you're paying up but not with Westbrook, who are the top tier point guards are you looking at?
So I think this little... it's very cluttered with Wall, Kemba, Lillard, Ben Simmons, and I'm going to throw Ben Simmons in there because he has a nice matchup, and he's definitely found his niche with this team, including Jimmy Butler, including Joel Embiid. I think Wall is my guy tonight for cash. 240 total. The Pelicans are the worst team or second to worst team defending point guards in the league. We just saw everything about this game just screams a high total. This game went for 238 without Anthony Davis, and now we're going to get Anthony Davis. I know that kind of puts maybe Wall drives to the rim at in harm's way because Davis is a good rim protector, but I think there's just going to be enough peripherals. There's going to the tempo of this game is going to be crazy. So I like Wall for cash. I think Kemba has tremendous upside here. I mean, he's averaging almost 50 DK points a game versus Atlanta in 2 games this year. I think Lillard has upside, but the Aaron Gordon news scares me off the Portland guys because we don't know how close this game's going to stay. I mean, Vegas has already shifted their lines to 9, which kind of makes me I mean, Gordon's already listed as doubtful. That definitely kind of assures. Yeah, I mean, just the fact that Vegas believes it too scares me. And I think Simmons is going to be the lowest owned of all if you want to go there. Nick's in a back-to-back. Who's going to guard him? Emmanuel Mudiay, the foul-happy Noah Vonleh, who, again, last night, predictably foul trouble against Blake Griffin very early. So I think Wall's the way to go in cash. Kemba and Simmons, I favor a little bit over Lillard, yeah.
I'm not going to argue too much with you there. Down in that mid-tier, I like Eric Bledsoe. There's a matchup that he put up nearly 48 FanDuel points and earlier. Again, that game, Chicago actually was leading for a while. They stay competitive. With Milwaukee, but again, they rank towards the middle of the pack defensively against point guards, and Bledsoe, in that top 3, they're averaging over a fantasy point per minute with Milwaukee. Price tag, again, is just really nice in that mid-tier range, and I think he's pretty safe. Got a good, floor of about 30 to 35 fantasy points. We know what his ceiling is, so no problem going with him there tonight. Trae Young, we had someone mention in chat, no Jeremy Lin tonight. Trae Young plays a lot of the minutes anyways, but no Lin. That's 20 or so minutes. Need to go elsewhere. Potentially those minutes end up going more towards Young here in this matchup against Kemba, and Kemba doesn't really play a lot of defense either. So maybe Trae Young gets a little bit of a boost in this matchup as well.
Yeah, I think Bledsoe's a really nice play here. I don't know if Chicago is going to actually keep it close this time. I know they were competitive for a while against Milwaukee the last time.
They have the scoring potential to stay up there if guys
if guys continue to play well, right. I don't know. Bledsoe's been significantly better at home this year, which is interesting to see. 36 fantasy points compared to 29 on the road, shooting 54% at home compared to 45 on the road. I thought that was very interesting. I mean, it's kind of like the Kemba Walker thing, right? Kemba's always been significantly better at home, and Bledsoe's another one. I like Trae Young for tournaments, definitely. I think we can, with Jeremy Lin out, project him at another 30-minute game. My issue, again, I say this a lot, and I don't think this so much anymore because there's a lot of instances where it backfires on me, but jump shooters on a back-to-back scares me a little bit, plus the high total, but they have no depth, so he's probably going to be forced to play 30 minutes whether this game is close or not.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're down in the sort of 5K-ish range. Are we looking maybe even below at point guard?
Well, just one more guy. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is an intriguing tournament option on DraftKings. The minutes haven't necessarily gone up with the Karis LeVert injury, but the production has, the usage has. We get like a 3% usage bump, up to 27%, which is the second highest percentage on the team, obviously behind D'Angelo Russell, who is also in play for tournaments. But Dinwiddie's has a really nice floor, and over on DraftKings, we get the 3-point bonus. He's someone who is a good 3-point shooter. Going down, Colin Sexton's okay. I'm scared about the blowout, but he should see 30 minutes with the lack of depth they have. And then there's just like a plethora of value guys. DJ Augustine, the 2 Spurs guys, and Ryan Arcidiacono. I think Arcidiacono is probably the cash game guy out of all of them because no matter the outcome, he's playing 30 minutes, period. He's playing 30 minutes. And, because the Bulls are scoring so well, I think there's more upside for assists than he's even shown lately. He could be the guy setting them up. So I think he's safe, the safest of like the value guys. I liked Augustine without Gordon, but just seeing the spread there, we could see more Jaren Grant here if it's a blowout, and they don't need to there's no need for them to run Augustine out. And Forbes and Mills are both gonna, they are what they are. Patty Mills is someone who's going to take a lot of shots and play 23 minutes. Bryn Forbes is someone who may take double-digit shots and may not and be on the floor for 28 to 30 minutes. So if we get the Bryn Forbes that takes a lot of shots, 12, 13 that we've seen, then he's fine. But he could deplete our lineup. So I like him for tournaments. So I like all those guys for tournaments. I just prefer Archie Docino in cash if we were going to play any of them.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I know we talked to Patty Mills. I think he's been a really safe guy. Love the price tag on him as well. Production's always been there, and Pop likes him. He's been there for a while now. Trusts him, giving him the minutes over the young kids. Shooting guard James Harden, obviously, like we said, if Chris Paul is out of the lineup, he's got a 50% usage rate, averaging just below 1.8 fantasy points per minute. It's absolutely insane. We went for 80 fantasy points in an overtime game against Washington the other night, and we know his ceiling doesn't need overtime to hit 80 either. There's a good matchup against Dallas. Dennis Smith Jr. not a great defender. Luka Doncic is okay, but still, James Harden should have any problems here in this matchup. He definitely tops the list. Isaiah Cannon got waived today by the Suns, so I think we're just committing to point Booker here, and Devin Booker has to be in this matchup against the Clippers, who surprisingly struggle to defend the point guard position, even though they have the likes of Pat Beverly and SGA and Avery Bradley. Still think Booker here, great spot. I love the matchup for him.
Yeah, so the thing with James Harden, I think he actually sees Wesley Matthews defensively, which is why I'm only on him if Chris Paul doesn't play, because Wesley Matthews is a good defender. He's actually given Harden problems in the past, and it's very hard to trust James Harden at 11-6 if Chris Paul plays. Point Booker, they're going to need him in order to keep this game close. The Clippers are again, the top team in the Western Conference right now, ranked number 1. So they're going to need Devin Booker to keep this game close. So in tournaments, I have no problem deploying him. I think he's going to be lower owned than we've seen like last night. And he wasn't terrible last night. He didn't exactly get us there, but he just missed 5x. He was more 4.5x. So he was close, but I think there's upside here again. And like you mentioned, it's a good matchup. They get a pace up spot. The Clippers are playing at one of the fastest pace in the league. So I do like Devin Booker. I'm having a hard time though, like especially in a cash game format, overlooking not even a cash, in any format, Drew Holiday or Bradley Beal. I'm going to keep this game it's too hard to ignore. Everyone's in a good spot, seemingly. Neither of these teams play defense, and the pace is just going to be frantic. It's just going to be up and down. So, Holiday, has shown 60-point upside, even with Davis in the lineup, and Beal's already flashed a good game against them this year. So, I don't know, we don't need to go Booker. I think if you're looking at it from an ownership perspective, you can do it. I just prefer Beal and Holiday personally.
Yeah, I think Beal's going to be very popular tonight, and a lot of people have already been talking about and asking about him in our subscriber chat. It's a great matchup for him. We saw him go off in the matchup earlier in this, against New Orleans a couple games ago, went for 47. So, not going to argue with you. I think it's a good spot. Donovan Mitchell returning with the next, struggle against, shooting guards. Mitchell, when I've played him, has done nothing for me. He's been injured, and then he had that random 8-shot game against Indiana. But around those games, 47, 49 to 44 FanDuel points, I think you have to consider him, especially since odds are, D'Angelo Russell sort of plays shooting guard when Dinwiddie's on the floor, and, that means you might see that defense, and that's just better for him. So I think Mitchell's an interesting GPP play here.
Yeah, he's okay. Again, it's one of the closer totals on the board, which we like, and he obviously has tremendous upside. But we can go up and get those guys, or we can go down, and if Chris Paul's out, we can get Eric Gordon. So I think it probably depends if weirdly enough, if Chris Paul, it's Chris Paul dependent, right? Because I would like to save that $1,500 or $1,400 going from Mitchell to Gordon, at least on DraftKings, and allocate my funds elsewhere, especially when we either have James Harden or Anthony Davis in our lineup. We're going to need that extra $1,400 for the rest of our builds. So Chris Paul ruled out. Chris Paul officially ruled out.
Well,
so
and Gerald Green ruled out, so they're just getting smaller and smaller. Well, we're on shooting guard, so Eric Gordon is just another guy. Lock
core
and
play. Yeah, core play. He's a core play.
Gordon's definitely in play. Harden, again, we said it. He's got a nearly 50% usage rate with just under 1.8 fantasy points per minute with Paul off the floor. I know you think Wes Matthews is going to defend him. That's I mean, it's a fair point if the defensive numbers match out there. But I mean, you're also saving some cash on FanDuel off Anthony Davis. So again, these two guys figured to be higher owned anyways. Anthony Davis, we did have projected higher than Harden. But I think this news switches a little bit. I think you're going to see a pretty even split, in my opinion. I don't know if that changes anything for you. Maybe just the depth at shooting guard is better than the depth at power forward, and maybe that's why a lot of people go Anthony Davis. But I don't think you can go wrong really with playing either one tonight.
I don't think you could go wrong. And like I'm not like if they're 1A 1B, it's literally a 1A 1B situation. If you want to say Davis is 1A, you say Davis. If you want to say Harden's 1A, that's fine. Again, 240 total, up-tempo game. Washington is 29th in rebounding differential, and they don't have Dwight Howard. So like
a 100-point game for Anthony Davis, maybe.
That's what I'm saying. And like you said on the podcast, is Markieff Morris going to be guarding him? Is Thomas Bryant going to be the one on the floor all this time? Like, it's just Anthony Davis has played, according to Basketball Reference, 100% of his floor time at center this year. So
why it makes no sense why he's still power forward only.
100%. I 100% agree. But that just sums it up. Like Washington has nobody to defend him tonight, and I'm not saying Wesley Matthews is going to be able to handle someone who has the ball 50% of the time. He might do good 50% of the time, but the other 50%, Harden might score 50 actual. Yeah. But I just think there could be. It's just one of those ceiling Anthony Davis games, and I think it's 1A 1B. I'm going to leave it at that. That's fine. I just have Davis 1A slightly to Harden's 1B.
Fair enough. All right, so we talked about Eric Gordon, $5,500 on FanDuel. Over on DraftKings, Gordon is priced out at $5,800, so still a good matchup. Price tag for over there. He's a lock, right? Yeah. We're just putting him in our lineups. All so if you're not paying up for Harden and you don't want to go spend up because you're trying to save some other, what mid-tier, what value to pair with an Eric Gordon, say on FanDuel, are you using at shooting guard?
Well, I think we've just touted him a few times, and I know I liked him more when all this Dallas news was in question. But Wesley Matthews is going to basically shadow Harden, in my opinion, tonight. Yeah. So I think the minutes that Harden plays, Wesley Matthews plays. He's still a guy averaging 16 points a game, actual points a game, and he's only 5K and 4.5 on DraftKings. I think he's a safe play. I think. He's a guy who shoots a lot of threes. If the threes start to fall, he's going to be guarded by who? Eric Gordon or James Harden. So on the flip side, he has a good matchup himself. So I think Matthews is a good play. I think the Magic, all these Magic value guys are interesting. Terrence Ross has, we love touting Terrence Ross. So I'm not gonna miss an opportunity to talk about like that giant usage rate anytime Aaron Gordon's off the floor. I think he's in play. When we go down, it gets very bleak, very fast.
Do you think Jamal Crawford becomes sort of an interesting punt play on FanDuel? Not interesting, but I mean, the production's been there the last 4 games, 26, 17, 20, 22. We're playing, 20, 23, 25, 22 minutes. He's $3,900. I think he's, 33 or 34 on DraftKings, something in that range, I think. But now no Isaiah Cannon at all on the roster.
34.
No Isaiah Cannon at all on the roster. You think maybe he gets an extra couple minutes on the floor? This is a revenge narrative here, we'll say, against his former team in the Clippers. Crawford looks like a really, really good spend down spot for me. This is a big slate. If you want to go stars and scrubs and want to get a little crazy, maybe fit Harden and AD in your lineup, you almost have to use Jamal Crawford, I think, right?
I mean, I'm starting to get on board with it as the day has progressed, especially with the Isaiah Cannon news, because now you effectively have Crawford as your backup shooting guard and your backup point guard. Even though he's cheaper on DraftKings, I think I would prefer to play him on FanDuel because you can drop the lowest score. But I'm with you. I mean, I think Jamal Crawford is a nice value tonight, especially when you consider the shooting guard value down below is – I mean, Malik Monk is one of the highest projected owned players on the slate. And yes, Malik Monk has shown upside, but Malik Monk does nothing but score. So if he's not scoring, he will crush your lineup. So I think Malik Monk is fine, but I think the pivot off of Malik Monk in the value tier is definitely going Jamal Crawford.
Yep. Let's go to small forward. Giannis. probably not going to be owned by many tonight, I think, with the Harden and Anthony Davis news. But again, against Chicago, matchup you can certainly go up against and play. You're right about the blowout. I kind of agree with you. He only went for 50 FanDuel points in that first matchup, 23 points and 13 rebounds in 31 minutes. Again, if you're spending up like Paul George against Cleveland, okay, but I don't know if I want to risk again the blowout there. We talked about it on the podcast. I can rattle off right now like 8 guys in this like 7 to 6 range. And you can build a whole lineup out of them. Mirotic, Parker, Gallinari, Covington, Warren, Porter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., just in that whole grouping, I think are just all valuable. Like you can just pick and choose however you want. If you like the matchup, you can go with it. Gallinari, I think it's a cash game play for me tonight. I think Porter Jr. can be in all formats. Covington and Warren are probably GPP guys.
Yep.
I guess, what's your opinion of this tier at small forward?
I think you just nailed it on the head. Okay. And I don't think you said anything about Jabari Parker, did you?
I left him off.
I think he's a tournament play as well. Okay. Revenge narrative, by the way, just to throw that out there. Sure. He did spend some time in Milwaukee. I mean, all his time. How much time he actually played for Milwaukee.
Didn't like the coach last year.
So. Right. And first game he played against him, 21 actual, 35 DraftKings points. So I think that whole tier plus everyone you mentioned plus Jabari Parker is all in play here. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. You like Rudy Gay? I think he's fine as well. Maybe DeAndre Bembry gets some additional run here with Jeremy Lin ruled out. He's seen over 20 minutes now in 3 straight games, 42, 35, and 23 fantasy points in those games. If he gets up into that 25-minute range again, because, again, the Lin minutes have to go somewhere, those 21-ish minutes he plays a night, maybe Bembry sees some additional minutes, and then he becomes more of a play. I think probably more on DraftKings at FanDuel, where he's $5,400, where on DraftKings, Bembry is what's he at over there?
4.2.
4.2, beautiful. Much better over on DraftKings than on FanDuel. But I think he's got to look at.
Yeah, I think they're officially, they don't think Kent Bazemore is a part of their future. So I think, as we've noticed, he's been removed from the starting rotation, and Kevin Porter is now starting. Yeah. Bembry is now, kind of taken over. Have you just seen the news?
I did. Kyle Korver traded to the Jazz.
And Tim Frazier starting at point guard and Frank Jackson ruled out. So I think that's interesting, to say the least. Because
Tim Frazier of the Pelicans, right? Is he still over there?
Yes, who was formerly of the Washington Wizards.
Revenge narrative,
3.5K minimum salary everywhere. The Cleveland depth is also now kind of even. They don't have any wings to begin with. I think this probably puts Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson back in play, because they literally don't have any options. George Hill was
Seti Osman, probably a guy you can throw back in there.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Rodney Hood played 35 minutes against Minnesota, had 20 actual points, 27 fantasy points. So, I think you can definitely go back to Rodney Hood here at his price point at small forward. Jonathan Isaac, I know there's a blowout game potential, but if no Aaron Gordon, I think I have some more appeal. He played 30 minutes against Golden State. Love the minutes. Love that he had 15 actual points. He should be a guy that can block and get more steals than he did in that game. So I think maybe Jonathan Isaac is a good spot here.
I don't even think the blowout matters for him, though. I think he would benefit from the blowout minutes. Yeah, I mean, even if he doesn't start, or even if he does, I think we can safely project him at 25 to 30 minutes. Yeah. And he's only 3.7 on DraftKings, so it's not like we're, even if he plays 25 minutes, it's not like he's not gonna bury our lineups at 3.7. Right. And I think his teammate Jonathan Simmons is 3.2K. I think that's also really hard to ignore. He started last game, played 25 minutes the game before, and had 24 fantasy points. So I think both these Magic guys, all this Magic value is interesting tonight, especially with Aaron Gordon doubtful.
Yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. So we have here going over to power forward again. Anthony Davis, definitely in play, as you mentioned. He's your favorite guy of the slate. Not even going to argue it because, like we said, I don't know who on Washington is going to defend him Doesn't seem like many. So
Nobody. No,
yeah,
nobody.
yeah. So yeah, again, and I think there's so much value that's opening up that you can probably play two of these guys on FanDuel. DraftKings obviously a little bit more difficult. LaMarcus Aldridge against Minnesota. I don't think many people may be on him tonight because they're going to be paying up for Anthony Davis. But Karl Anthony Towns not a great defender. Aldridge may have his hands full a little bit defensively on his own, but double certainly well within play. Both Clippers guys, Montrezl Harrell, Tobias Harris. We love them both. Price points are the exact same over on FanDuel. You really just flip a coin depending on which way they go. I might go Tobias here over Harrell, but again, their ceilings and floors are like the exact same. They're going to give us minimum of like 35 with ceilings of 50s if they get there. So really difficult to decide. I like John Collins in GPPs against Charlotte. We just saw him in this matchup. Put up 43 fantasy points. Marvin Williams, Cody Zeller, not going to do anything here against Collins. Playing over 30 minutes as it is. So we know that when he is able to stay out of foul trouble, he's a fantasy point per minute plus player. And we're seeing that out of him right now. Guys in the top, guys in the mid-tier, what are the power forwards you looking at?
I think Larry Nance is really hard to fade tonight.
Wow, Alec Burks traded to Cleveland.
Interesting. So the Cavs officially have like 9 players active.
Yeah, and that puts Raul Neto maybe in play with Burks ruled out.
Raul Neto could. Yeah, he could be in play. Do we need to do it on a 10-game slate? I understand what you're saying.
To be different, To be different,
we could. Maybe on FanDuel, preferably.
$100 over min price. Seeing 18 and 15 minutes the last 2 games. No more Burks though. You got to think maybe some of those minutes go to him. Burks is playing 22, 21, 16. So all right, off the backup point guards over in Jazz, back to power forward.
It's kind of works that we're talking about Cleveland and Utah because Larry Nance is one of the active 9 players that Cleveland has, and 5.3K is too cheap for him over on DraftKings. 6K honestly might be too cheap. They don't have anyone active. They're going to all have to play minutes. I think Nance is going to be the highest owned player on the slate, if not Davis, if not Harden, if not Eric Gordon. It's going to be like those 4 guys.
We project Nance to be the highest on player.
Right, but we were also I don't know if that factored in the Chris Paul news because Eric Gordon's ownership isn't where it's going to be. Yeah. Right. Eric Gordon the other night was 70% owned. I know he's cheaper, but his price isn't crazy to where we're like, all right, we're not going to play Eric Gordon. Right. So I think Larry Nance is one of my favorite power forwards on the board. I think you can fade him in tournaments. Because if this game does blow out, maybe he doesn't play 30 minutes, but they don't have anybody else. They don't have anybody else. So
I think everybody in Cleveland is safe today. I do. I think their minutes are safe. Sexton's going to play regardless of blowouts. We've seen that no matter what. And like you said, they don't have anybody else regardless. 9-man team. So they can't stick to the bench guys. The 4 guys they have on the bench to play the rest of the game. So I think everybody is safe for 30 minutes in that starting lineup, in my opinion. Going a little bit further down at power forward, we mentioned on the podcast that Marvin Williams has been pretty good of late, and he had a 37 fantasy point game against Atlanta last time out, playing over 30 minutes right now, last 3 games. So 5.3K over on DraftKings, over on FanDuel, over on DraftKings, 4.5. So for me, I think that's a spot to go.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a spot to go.
Center, where we're leading off. I put it on the starting 5 video. I messaged you right before we jumped on air. Enes Kanter has absolutely just destroyed the 76ers last year. And they had a 31.22 rebounding game as part of that. So for me, I think Enes Kanter, especially in DraftKings, his price point is 6.8K, I think. Really hard to ignore. You like Gobert against the Nets. Pretty much any center against the Nets is always in play. What other top centers are you looking at, or just a center position on a whole?
I love Embiid. I think he's the contrarian elite play of the slate. The Knicks aren't going to – yes, they stopped Andre Drummond last night, but Joel Embiid's a different animal than Andre Drummond. I think Vukovic is point per dollar, one of the best plays on the slate. If that game can stay close without Aaron Gordon, he's going to have all the usage. He has like a 1.5 fantasy point per minute type of output with Aaron Gordon off the floor. Love Gobert, all formats, preferably in cash, but you could do it in tournaments as well. Steven Adams is okay. I liked him for cash, but I don't know if this game's going to stay close. Tristan Thompson, flip side, has to play minutes. We don't love the matchup against Adams, but he's going to be around the rim the whole time because that's Steven Adams doesn't leave the paint. No. And then going down, Cody Zeller on DraftKings, 4K. Really hard to ignore in cash. And I think Thomas Bryant could be in play here because they have to play somebody. They need a able big body. So whether that's him, whether that's Jason Smith, whoever these bums in Washington.
Haven't played Mahinmi in a while. Mahinmi could be a guy.
Well, this is why I kind of didn't say him and I went right to Jason Smith.
Yeah.
Because they haven't played Mahinmi. So one of these guys are going to play minutes. Either way, Anthony Davis is going to destroy him. But one of them, I would just say Thomas Bryant because he's starting.
Fair enough. All right, it is 6:30. James and I will be in subscriber chat leading up to roster lock. James, lineups out or coming out?
Coming out right now.
Lineups are coming out. Obviously, we had to wait on some news. So be on the lookout for those. Starting five video is out. Playbook is out. Hit us up in subscriber chat with all your questions, lineup, injury news, everything. We got it for you. Good luck, everybody. Tonight's slate. We'll hit you up on Friday. No live stream tomorrow, right?
Yep, no live stream tomorrow. 3 games.
So live stream on Friday. Podcast tomorrow, though, so check that out.
Later, guys.